cause I'm a fool for your love.
So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I set up my freelance kit when I am on location for weddings. I realized the importance of having a good setup this year and how it can really affect your day. I actually got this request to do this video a couple months back by a subscriber. I can't remember your name, but thank you so much because I really thought it was a good idea, because having a good proper setup for events like weddings or anything where you're going to be doing multiple clients in a row, it's so important to have your products laid out properly and not be all unorganized. If you are unorganized, it's really going to affect your flow, your efficiency. You're going to be looking for products, and it's really going to add on time to each client. And I know it may seem like such a simple thing, but these are some things that I've realized are so important, and this is why having a good organized kit all the time and making sure your products are clean and where they're supposed to be is so important, because setting up is actually a big important part of your day. It's not just doing the makeup. You have to make sure you have a proper setup. Now, obviously, every venue is not going to have the most amazing setup for makeup artists and hairstylists. A lot of hotels are really cramped, especially when you have a whole bridal party in there, so you kind of just have to work with what you got, and there's not going to be, you know, the most perfect setup all the time. I've had situations many times where I've been in cramped hotel rooms and I've just had, the only place to set up is literally a windowsill that have like a foot this way, and I just have to lay my products across, and it sucks, but you just make it work. You do what you got to do. But if you have a hotel room that has a desk in it, or a bridal suite that has a vanity, then this is how you're going to want to set up. It honestly makes such a difference. You know, you're not going to have to look for products while you're doing each client. Everything's going to be laid out the way it should be, and you're going to be able to work a lot more efficiently and just quickly. So this is kind of what I've learned over the years that I've been doing makeup, and this setup works for me. It's not going to work for everybody. Everybody is different. Everybody's a different artist, but this works for me, so I'm sure it will help somebody out there. So I did set up a folding table here because I feel like this is a pretty standard size of like a desk or a vanity in most like hotel rooms or bridal suites. But like I said, you're not always going to have a whole tabletop that you can use, especially if you're in a small room and you have to share with a hairstylist. Be mindful of that. Like, don't just show up and be like, okay, I'm going to take up this whole space, because that's not cool, because you are going to most likely be working with a hairstylist as well. So be mindful of that. But having a good setup definitely starts the night before or the morning of. The night before a wedding, I always make sure I go through my kit, make sure all my products are clean and where they're supposed to be. The last thing you're going to want to do is do a job, throw everything back in because you're rushing and you want to get home, and then go to a job the next day with everything kind of unorganized and jumbled up in your kit. You want to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be and clean. That way when you go to set up the next day, everything is where it's supposed to be, and it's going to be easier to set up. So I always go through my kit the night before a job. The next thing you're going to want to do is you want to show up 15 to 20 minutes before your start time that you discussed with the bride. I always warn the bride, hey, I like to show up early. I like to make sure I have enough time to set up, because to me that's really important. The last thing you want to do is show up 5 minutes before your start time and try and set up within 5 minutes, because it's not going to happen. Yeah, of course you can get your products out in 5 minutes, but it's not going to probably be the most ideal setup. So I definitely suggest getting there 15 to 20 minutes before to set up your product. Another little thing I wanted to mention is do give your bride a little bit of a heads up that one, like I said before, you are going to be showing up a little bit early to set up, and just kind of give her a heads up, like, I am going to need some space, so if you could put some space aside for me in front of a window, if you can, if they're staying in a hotel room. Obviously, they don't have control over this in a bridal suite because they're not staying overnight, but if I'm going to a hotel room really early in the morning and the bride is staying overnight, I do kind of just let her know, like, hey, just put a little space aside for me if you can in front of a window, because I personally like to have a little bit of natural light as well. If not, it's no biggie, but I just like to kind of give them a heads up, like, that I will need some space, because sometimes brides kind of have stuff all over the place, which I 100% get. This is not a dig at brides whatsoever, but there's so much stuff that you need for a wedding, especially if you have gifts for your bridesmaids. Like, there's just so much stuff, decor, flowers, that I like to just kind of give them a heads up instead of waiting till the morning of when I get there and then having to wait for them to, like, move all their stuff aside. That's gonna cut into my setup time, so I like to just give them a little bit of heads up, like, hey, you know, I know you're staying overnight in the hotel room. If you could just leave a little space aside for me, I would really appreciate it. It's just gonna help, you know, me setting up in the morning go a lot quicker. So yeah, anyways, so let's get started. So the first thing I like to do is I actually like to bring some towels with me, usually like 2 hand towels, and I like to lay them down just because, especially in hotels, usually the desks are like nice wooden desks, and I don't want to be responsible for ruining a desk if I spill anything. I'm really clumsy, so some of you may not need to lay down a towel, but I spill things a lot, and I don't want, like, things getting on the wood and ruining the finish. So I always like to sit down at least 1 towel, but usually 2, and preferably I like to use black because I don't like the look of, like, the stained white towels. Even though they're clean, they're stained, so they, like, look dirty, if you know what I mean. So I like to set down 2 towels, and then the first thing I set down after the towels is my brushes. I like to make sure these are in the most convenient spot for me. They're easy to reach, and I'm not going to be, like, reaching over things to get to them. Those are the tools that you're going to need the most when you're doing makeup, so make sure that they're in the most convenient location. These are not all my brushes. These are just some of them, but I did get this, which is called the Brush Folio, I think, by Brushworks, and it's like basically like a little binder, but you can open it up. It's zippers, by the way. You can open it up and then it folds back, and then the sides button, so all your brushes are sitting up. So I'm gonna set this up real quick. I will usually just put my brushes right in the front, wherever my chair is gonna be. Like, let's say I'm setting up my chair right here, then I want my brushes to be right here. If I was setting up on the other side, obviously my brushes would be on the other side. The next thing I like to set up, though, is my brush cleaner, because obviously you're going to be cleaning brushes most of the time when you do makeup, so I like to make sure my brush cleaner is out and ready to go, and I don't have to dig for it in my kits. So I just keep my brush cleaner in one of these things with, like, a little nozzle. I don't really like to keep my brush cleaner in, like, a spray bottle because they always break. So I like to keep them in something like this where I can just dump the brush cleaner on the brushes. So I like to keep my brush cleaner right behind my brushes, and then my black towel is here, so as I go I can kind of just rinse them off real quick and rub them on the black towel. You of course could use paper towels, but I just feel like you waste so many paper towels, and I like to use an actual towel because of the texture. I feel like it really gets the bristles clean. So the next thing I like to set up is actually this, which is in my kit. If you see my What's in My Kit video, which I will be doing an updated one soon, I keep this little drawer set in here. So I like to set this up because this has a variety of products for me. It has eye stuff, concealers, face palettes, and I will take some of the products out of here, but for now I like to just kind of set this up. And the next thing, I like to set up in the order that I do makeup. So if you do face first, you're gonna wanna make sure your foundation is next. If you do eyes next, you wanna make sure that's next. Whatever step is first, you're gonna wanna make sure you kind of set it up in that order. That way, it just makes the most sense that way. So the first thing I like to do is skincare, obviously. So what I like to do is take out my most used skincare. So this drawer is all skincare, but one thing I always use is my toner. I have pre-soaked, which I need to fill them back up, but I have pre-soaked cotton rounds in here with toner, and then I always use my Embryolisse as my moisturizer. And then if someone's really oily, I will use my Bioderma moisturizer, which has sebum control in it, so it's more of a mattifying moisturizer. So I'm just gonna lay these right behind my brushes, and that way they're ready to go. So the next thing I like to do is I like to just put out a spatula and a palette. I use palettes and spatulas like multiple times throughout doing a client's makeup, so I just like to put it on top of here just because I feel like it's an easy spot to get to. So yeah. Alright, so the next thing I like to do is I like to set up eyeshadow, because that's what I do. After skincare, I like to move on to eyeshadow and brows, because that's just the way I do things. But if you do foundation, then obviously you could set up foundation. But for brows, I have my brow booklet here, and then these are a bunch of primers and brow products in here as well. So I'm just going to set up these right in back here. So just so you can see, that's what it looks like back here. I know it's hard to see because of my brushes, but yeah, this is what it's looking like back here. And then the next step is eyeshadow. So I usually bring about 3 palettes with me. So I always bring this palette here, which is a bunch of individual shadows that I've made myself. Not made the individual shadows, but I put this palette together, that's what I mean. And then I usually have like 1 or 2 other palettes, so I just grab these ones just randomly, just so you guys can see. So I actually decided I'm gonna move this over and back because it just makes more sense. I want to utilize this space the best way possible, so it makes more sense back there, and it's still like I can still easily open up all these drawers, like nothing's in front of it, so I just feel like it's better to do it that way. So the next thing I'm going to set up is the eyeshadow, like I said. So I'm just going to put the eyeshadow opened up right here, and I like to make sure all the palettes are actually open. That way I use all of them. So in this drawer here, I have all my like liners, pigments, primers, all of that. I keep, for the most part, all my liners in here and stuff, and I'll just open this drawer whenever I need it. But the one thing I do like to take out is my pigments, because I like to put them right next to the eyeshadow, so I don't know, if I feel like if it's not out, sometimes I'll forget to use it, and I don't like that. So I'm just going to grab a couple pigments, and I like to just set them up right next to, and I usually will open them up, but I'm not going to do that. You guys get the point. But yeah, I'm just going to set them up next to the eyeshadow. Another thing I forgot to show you is this. So this is just Q-tips, mascara wands, and some little clips. I need to fill this back up because I'm running low, but I like to keep this by the skincare. I don't know why, I like it to stay by the skincare, so I'm gonna put that back here. So next we have lashes. I have like my tools for lashes and all the lashes that I would be using. So I'm just gonna put this right behind the eyeshadow because I typically do eyeshadow, liner, lashes, and then I move on to face. So now we're gonna move on to the face section. So in here I have all my foundations. I keep this pouch at the top of my kit. So what I like to do is I actually have this little white like plastic case in here, and I have all my foundations laying flat. But when I do a wedding, I like to flip them all upwards. That way I can actually see all of them, because when they're laying flat, they are kind of layered on top of each other, so I can't see everything. So I like to kind of just organize them by brand and line them up. Sometimes I'll even, if I have time, I will even put them in the order of shade, but you know, I don't always have time for that, so I like to just do that. Back here is my spray foundation. I have contour palette here, a cream contour palette, so I'm going to put this back here, kind of in its own little section right here. And my concealers, if you're wondering, are in this top drawer. I could, if I wanted to, take out my most used colors and lay them here, but I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. Usually that's not the case. So I'm fine with them being in here though. I never have an issue with it. When I need my concealer, I just open up the drawer and everything is in here. So foundation's here, concealers are in here. But like I said, if you want to be extra, you could go ahead and take out some of the concealers and lay them out next to the foundations. That way everything is, all like the liquid face products are right here, but you know, it is what it is. So in here, in this drawer here, I do have my face palettes that I store in here. These are something that I do like to take these out of the drawer because there's no point in keeping them piled on top of each other in the drawer because I can't see what I have, you know what I mean? So I like to set these up. I like to kind of layer them on top of each other, so I open them up and just do it like this. And just kind of set them up like that. So I have blushes, bronzers, highlight and contour, all of that. By the way, I do like to always bring some sort of wipe with me, whether it be makeup wipes, which I usually always have makeup wipes with me, I just don't always put them out. But I like to have some sort of wipe just to kind of wipe my hands if I have makeup on them. So I'm just gonna put these back here because it's not something that I need like super accessible, but yeah, I like to just have them. So next we have face powders, and I have this case from Amazon. It's basically like a travel makeup case, but I keep all my powders in here and it helps me stay so organized. I have them organized by the type of powder, so I have face powders, highlighters, some bronzers, and then loose powders back here. So I like to just sometimes lay this directly out on the table, and it's fine because it's all organized by the type of powder, so it's not like a big deal. But if I have a little extra time, I will like to just take out my most used shades and just lay them out on the table and not have this big bulky thing on here. But honestly, it's not a big deal to me because, like I said, it's all organized in here, and I just take out what I need when I need it. But I actually do think I am going to add labels onto the side of the packaging so I can see the shade of the face powder rather than having to take them out every time and guess, you know, where shade medium is, because I can't see the shade names when they're in here. So I think I'm going to add the shade name on the side because all the shade names are on the bottom, so that doesn't really help me. But yeah, sometimes like I said, I will take them out and put them out individually, and then other times I will just keep them in this thing here. If you're wondering where I put my lip products, I actually like to keep my lip products in my kit. So most of the time I will actually lay my kit in front of my station here, and I just keep the products in here because all my lip products are actually in this thing, lip liners I mean, are in here. So rather than taking them out, I like to just keep them in this thing, and then I have here my little book of lip products, and I just kind of open it up and I just lay it in my kit here, and this is like my little lip station. So that's what works for me. Obviously, if you want to set them up on the table somewhere, you can, but I prefer it to do it this way, and it gives me more room on the table for like my face products and eyeshadows and stuff. And then I will typically set up my chair either in front, like right here, and then have them face this way and have my light behind the table if I can. Or I will set up the chair facing this way and will have my light like over here somewhere, if the room allows for me to be, you know, taking up this much space this way. If not, then I will put the chair to the side of the table and have the light, you know, over here somewhere. So if you're curious where I have my chair and my lights, I kind of just change that around depending on the amount of space that I have, obviously. But yeah, that's pretty much my setup. That is pretty much how I set up. I guess the basic tips to take away from this is to set up in the order that you do makeup, because it's going to help the flow go a lot easier, and you're not going to be looking for products and kind of reaching all over the table. It's just easier to kind of work your way down the table, in my opinion. So that's why I have, you know, brushes here, skincare here, eyes here, because I always do eyes before face, and then lips over here, because lips are always the last step for me. So that's what works for me. I do want to say just a few things that really help with my setup is having something like this. Sometimes I will use cups to, like, you know, the brush cups, but this is great because I can actually see all my brushes with this. And I find with the cups, things get lost and I kind of just reach for the same brushes for everybody, where this I kind of use all the brushes because I can see all of them. Another thing that really helps keep me organized and also helps with space is having something like this. If I didn't have this, I would need way more space to set up all the products in here, but this just kind of takes up height, not so much width. So I feel like when it comes to setting up makeup, I need more width, if you know what I'm saying. So this is really helpful because it just keeps my products organized and all in one space. Like my eye stuff is in this drawer, my concealers are in this drawer, but it just helps, you know, it doesn't take as much room up. And also, a lot of times I end up putting stuff on top of here. Like, it's a whole extra little spot to put stuff. Like, if I wanted to put my brow stuff on top of here and give me more table space, I can. So I really like that. Another thing that really helps is the foundations and having them in this little white container here where I can actually stand them all up really helps because I actually can see all the foundations. And lastly, the thing that helps is this thing here. Like I said, sometimes I will take the products out and lay them out individually, but this does help keep me organized and keeps all my face powders in one section, if you know what I mean. So yeah, those are just some products that I would look into if you don't have some of these. It will help with your setup. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you haven't already. I will be filming either later on this week. I know I've said this before, but I promise I will be filming later on this week my my updated what's in my kit video. I know that is something that I've been like saying for a couple of months now, but I'm finally ready. I wanted to film this first and then that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.
I'm a fool for your love.